Chapter 6. The Troll's Cave. Alex wiped the troll's blood off his sword and sheathed it as he waited for Thrang and Bregnest. He felt tired and drained, but proud at having defeated the troll. The eastern sky was growing light when Archon finally returned to the clearing, followed closely by the rest of the company. It seemed that Archon had already told Alex's story to the others, and they arrived excited to see the frozen troll.
"Not a bad night's work,"
Skeld commented, looking at the troll and its missing leg.
"Don't see many like this one, do we?"
3 legs, said Tayo as he stood beside Bregnest. What do you mean? Isn't that normal for trolls? Alex asked. Skeld burst into laughter, and the others smiled as well. When Skeld regained control of himself, he looked at Alex.
"Do you know about the birds and the bees?"
he asked in a tone that made him sound like a schoolteacher. Yes, Alex replied.
"Well, trolls don't,"
said Skeld, laughing madly again. Alex looked to Thrang for an answer.
Trolls aren't like other creatures,
Thrang explained with a smile.
Trolls molt.
Molt?
They shed their skins, but not like a snake. When trolls molt, they divide into 2 different trolls.
Alex looked at the other members of the company, thinking that this was a joke, but they all nodded in agreement with what Thrang had said. It's in the handbook, said Andy. You should take more time to read it. I suppose I should, Alex admitted. He hadn't even looked at the handbook since Archon had given it to him.
Now watch,
said Thrang, looking to the east.
You'll see something that not many have.
Alex and his companions watched as the sunlight moved to where they were standing in the clearing. Even Skeld became quiet as the light inched closer to the troll. When the first ray of sunlight touched the troll's uplifted arm, there was a sharp cracking sound, like ice splitting, and the troll's skin and clothes changed from green and brown to light gray stone.
That's what happens to trolls caught in sunlight,
said Thrang in a satisfied tone. That's incredible, said Alex in amazement.
"Most adventurers know that sunlight will turn trolls to stone,"
said Skeld, chuckling to himself.
"But getting them into sunlight, that's the hard part."
Enough talk,
said Thrang.
Let's see what it had in its pockets.
They all gathered around the objects Thrang had retrieved in the darkness. A fair-sized iron key, a suitcase-sized coin purse, and 6 leather bags.
The key will be to its cave,
said Thrang, handing it to Bregnest.
We'll have to look for that.
And well worth looking for, Archon added.
Let's see now,
Thrang continued, opening the giant coin purse and pouring the contents onto the ground. Alex gasped as the gold and silver coins spilled out at Thrang's feet. He had never seen any treasure in his life, and this pile seemed huge to him. Most trolls carry only a small part of their wealth with them, said Tayo with a grim smile. If this is a sign, the cave should hold a fair amount.
Let's see what these might be,
said Thrang, reaching for one of the leather bags and untying the knotted cord that held it closed. Thrang slipped his hand inside. Alex took a deep breath as Thrang pulled out a handful of large, dark red rubies. Out of the second bag, Thrang withdrew some incredibly green emeralds. The third bag contained more rubies, while the fourth and fifth bags were each full of shiny white diamonds. Alex couldn't believe how much treasure the troll had been carrying.
"It seems our adventure has already made a profit,"
said Skeld, slapping Alex on the back and smiling. Thrang's hands trembled with excitement as he untied the cords on the last bag. Alex watched him closely, wondering what new treasure this last bag would hold. Thrang looked into the bag for a moment, a puzzled look on his face. Then he held out his left hand and dumped the bag's contents into it, a single golden ring set with a large black stone.
Something special about this,
said Thrang, looking at Bregnest.
No troll would carry a ring, not unless it was something special.
"That's true," Bregnest agreed. "So hear now what I say about the division of this treasure. As a single victor, Alex would normally have the honor of dividing this treasure as well as an extra share. Because of Alex's judgment for leaving his post, I will divide this first treasure evenly between us, with one exception. This ring is unknown, but may have magical powers. According to our agreement, it belongs to Alex. He looked sternly at Alex. I would advise leaving it in its bag, however, until you find an oracle who can tell you exactly what it is.
Thrang placed the ring back into the leather bag and handed it to Alex. He accepted the bag with a bow, but made no move to put it into his magic bag with his other belongings. Part of him wanted to look at the ring again, but he decided to follow Bregnest's advice and keep the bag closed.
I would say that these gems are an uncommon treasure, as trolls seldom carry gems with them. Though Alex has lost his extra share in this treasure, these should go to him for his victory over the troll,
said Bregnest with a smile.
He may choose to share them or to keep them for himself.
Share them, please, said Alex as Thrang held out 2 of the bags to him. It's only right that we share these.
You are most generous,
said Bregnest.
We will do as you ask. So then, 8 equal shares, and all odd numbers to the victor.
To the victor, 6 voices agreed. Alex wasn't sure what Bregnest meant by to the victor, but he soon learned it meant that any items that couldn't be divided into 8 equal shares belonged to him. In the end, Alex received 7 rubies, 6 emeralds, 3 diamonds, 5 gold coins, and 2 silver coins more than anyone else. Once the treasure had been divided, Skeld said,
Let's find the home of our stone friend. If he carried this much treasure with him, a fair hoard awaits us in his cave.
Archon took the lead, and they followed him across the clearing and up the hill beyond. The deep imprints of the troll's leather boots had left a clear trail that was not difficult to follow.
You've done a good night's work,
said Thrang, walking next to Alex.
Even if the cave is empty, we've more than paid for our adventure with this treasure.
Alex wondered if he should offer to pay Thrang back for the items he'd bought in Telos, but then he remembered Andy's comments about dwarves and their money, and he decided to remain silent, at least until he understood a little more about dwarves. An impressive first victory, said Andy, coming up on Alex's other side. I was lucky, Alex replied.
Lucky or not, it's still remarkable,
Thrang commented. Alex shook his head. I was too angry and foolish to see the danger.
You may have been many things, but not foolish,
said Thrang in a serious tone.
You followed your instincts and did what your heart told you, and you used magic to defeat your enemy.
It was luck, Alex insisted. I really didn't have time to think about it.
Luck is a good thing to have,
said Andy as they climbed the hillside.
Maybe better than magic in some ways.
Alex considered what Thrang and Andy had said. He still had mixed feelings about magic, but he was glad that he had some luck. The sun was well up when they came at last to a flat, open space on the side of the hill. Alex looked back down the path they had climbed, and he could see their tents far off in the morning light. He hoped Cherie was all right, and had been able to shake off her fear from the night before.
Going to take a bit of looking,
said Halfton as they moved into the clearing.
Looks like this troll was careful.
What do you mean? Alex questioned. Look at the ground, said Tayo. The troll's tracks have vanished. Alex looked around the clearing, and Tayo was right. The boot tracks they had followed up the hillside were nowhere to be seen.
Its lair must be close,
said Skeld.
Spread out,
said Bregnest.
Look for anything that seems out of place.
Alex walked a few paces, but he didn't have any idea what to look for. There were no boot prints leading to the troll's lair, and as far as Alex could tell, this was just an open space on the hillside.
A bit higher on the hillside would give the troll a better view of the land below,
said Halfton. They climbed up the hill, looking for any sign of the troll. Alex watched the ground, but there was nothing to see. He glanced around at his companions, and saw that Thrang had stopped and was looking up at the branches of a tree.
Here's the door,
called Thrang, pointing at a moss-covered boulder that stood between 2 trees.
Better hidden than most trolls' lairs.
I don't see a door, said Alex as he looked at the boulder.
That's because you don't know what you're looking for.
Replied Thrang.
Look up at the branches. See how some of them are broken off?
Yes, replied Alex.
Now look at the boulder. What do you see?
Thrang questioned. It's just a moss-covered boulder, said Alex.
But what side is the moss growing on?
Thrang asked. The south side? Alex guessed.
Moss grows on the north side of boulders and trees.
Said Thrang.
Or at least it does here in the north of Argland.
So why is there moss on this boulder? Alex questioned.
Because the troll uses it to hide his door.
Thrang answered with a grunting laugh.
I'd guess the keyhole is hidden in the moss.
Stand ready.
Bregnest ordered, the key in his hand.
There may be another troll inside.
The rest of the company all moved back a little, spreading out in a half circle around the doorway. Alex was a little nervous, believing his victory was more luck and anger than anything else, and he didn't want to meet a second troll so soon. Bregnest pushed the key into a small crack that Alex had not seen and turned it once. There was a loud click, and with some hard pulling, Bregnest managed to open the door to the troll's cave. A terrible smell filled the air as the door swung open. Rotten fish and old socks mixed with dirty dishes that had been left to soak for too long. Alex thought for a moment he was going to be sick. He pulled his shirt up over his nose, but it did little to block the smell. Thrang ignited a large, dead branch that was lying nearby and carefully stepped into the doorway.
It's all right.
He said in a tone that sounded both relieved and happy.
The cave isn't deep, and there aren't any trolls.
The rest of the company followed Thrang into the cave, wary and alert. The foul smell was stronger inside the cave, and Alex began to feel a little dizzy. "Step outside," said Archon, seeing the look on Alex's face. "You've had a long night, and the smell might be too much for you." "I should stay with the company," Alex replied in a determined tone. Archon nodded in response and said nothing more. Once they were all inside the cave, Thrang lit the several lamps that were scattered around the single large room. Alex's feelings of sickness were forgotten once the lamps were lit. He was stunned and amazed by what he saw in the troll's cave. He'd never imagined so much gold and silver could be in one place at one time. Along the back wall of the cave were two huge black cauldrons, big enough for a man to sit in, and both of them were overflowing with coins. Next to the cauldrons were several piles of leather bags, all neatly tied at the top, just like the bags the troll had been carrying in his pockets. Alex looked at everything, his mouth hanging open in disbelief.
"You've done well, Master Wizard."
Skeld laughed loudly, but he suddenly stopped. Alex followed Skeld's gaze to the opposite wall. Hanging there on wooden pegs were what looked like 7 magic bags. Broken weapons were scattered on the floor beneath them. The bags looked almost exactly like Alex's own bags, though a bit more worn. Alex's mouth snapped shut as he realized what this discovery meant. The others looked at the bags as well, and their happiness with the treasure changed to sorrow for the lost adventurers who had once owned these bags.
"Take them outside, Skeld,"
Bregnest commanded.
"We will not leave them in this evil place another moment."
Skeld carefully took the bags from their pegs and carried them out into the sunlight. His cheerful face was grim and slightly pale with sorrow.
"Alex,"
Bregnest continued,
"gather wood and start a fire. We will eat in the clearing while we remove the treasure."
Alex nodded. As he left the cave, the others began hauling the treasure into the sunlight. By the time Alex had gathered a large stack of wood and had a fire burning, his friends were covered with sweat from their heavy work. In the sunlight, there seemed to be even more treasure than Alex had thought, and he was surprised when he re-entered the cave and saw the mounds of treasure that remained.
"Let's eat before we continue,"
said Bregnest, nodding to Thrang.
"It's been a long night for us, and the food and drink will do us good."
Alex and his friends gathered around the fire, sitting in silence as Thrang cooked their meal. Skeld began looking at the recovered magic bags while they waited. He put his mouth to the top of one bag and spoke softly into it, but nothing happened. "What are you doing?" Alex asked.
"It's possible an adventurer has survived inside his bag,"
answered Skeld, taking another of the bags and lifting it to his mouth.
"If they have, I'm telling them it's safe to come out now."
Alex wondered how long someone could survive inside a magic bag. Considering that his own bag had 4 rooms and a fair amount of food and water, Skeld's actions seemed to make sense.
"It's a fool's hope,"
said Halfton, watching Skeld speak into the bags.
"If any adventurer was inside his bag, the bag would be where he left it, and not here."
"Of course," said Skeld, laying down the last bag on top of the others.
"But it's better to hope than to despair,"
he said, a touch of color returning to his face. They ate their meal in silence, too tired and sad for conversation. When they finished eating, they returned to the cave and once more started hauling treasure into the sunlight. It was heavy work, but the labor distracted them from the foul smell that hung in the air. It was well after midday before the cave was empty and the treasure stacked in the sunlight. Alex and the others were exhausted from the work and the lack of sleep, and they all dropped to the ground to rest for several minutes. The piles of treasure had grown enormous in Alex's eyes. He wondered if Slathbog's hoard was bigger than this, and if so, how would they ever move it? After catching his breath, Bregnest stood up and walked to the pile of magic bags they'd taken from the cave. He looked at the bags sadly for several minutes before he spoke.
"It is customary that the one who recovers an adventurer's bag returns it to the heir of the lost adventurer,"
said Bregnest, looking at Alex.
"These were recovered because of your victory over the troll, and so the honor and burden falls to you. However, as you are a new adventurer, I will carry this burden for you if you wish."
Bregnest hesitated for a moment and then continued.
"Any reward given for the return of these bags will be yours, of course, as it was by your valor these bags were recovered."
Alex hadn't considered what they would do with the 7 magic bags. He wanted to do what was right among adventurers, and he suspected it wasn't to duck his responsibility and let someone else, even Bregnest, carry the burden. "You are very kind," Alex said after a moment of thought, "but I will keep the custom and return the lost bags. Any reward should be shared among the company, however, as all profits from this adventure should be."
"Well spoken," Bregnest replied with a smile. "You have learned a great deal in a short time. The honor of carrying the bags remains with you."
Bregnest handed the bags to Alex, bowing low as he did so. Alex returned the bow and carefully placed each of the magic bags inside his own. He had no idea how he would ever find the adventurer's heirs, but he was pleased to know he had given the correct answer.
"Now to happier matters," said Bregnest. "A fair amount of treasure to divide among the 8 of us."
They all cheered, and Bregnest put each member of the company to work sorting the piles of treasure. He also repeated that all odd numbers were to go to Alex, which made Alex blush slightly as the others cheered again. By the time they'd divided the treasure and stored it in their bags, the sun was sinking in the west. Tired and happy, they made their way back down the hill to their camp by the road. They were completely worn out when they finally reached their tents, and all they could think of was sleep. Instead of preparing another meal, they ate leftover stew from Thrang's pot and the roasted birds Archon had shot the day before. While everyone else ate, Alex slipped away from the fire. He wanted to check on Cherie and make sure she was all right. Cherie whinnied loudly as he approached, a sound that was much happier now than it had been the night before. Alex gently rubbed the horse's neck and let her nuzzle his shoulder. "You did well, my friend," Alex said softly. "You found Archon and told him where I was. Thank you." Cherie whinnied again, nodding her head up and down as though agreeing to what Alex had said. Alex looked into her eyes, and he could see for himself how grateful she was that he had saved her. "It's all right," said Alex with a smile. I may not be able to understand you like Archon does, but I know exactly what you mean,
Alex,
said Bregnest as he came up beside Cherie. I'm sorry I broke the rules, Alex blurted out. I know everything turned out well, but I'm sorry I forced you to punish me,
a small matter,
said Bregnest. But Alex started, then stopped. He wasn't sure he could put his thoughts into words, or at least not into words that Bregnest would understand.
I know,
said Bregnest with a smile.
You were right to do what you did. You followed your heart and did what you knew was the right thing to do. Knowing when to trust yourself is far more important than any rule, and a great deal of good may come from your actions.
What good? Alex questioned. I mean, I'm glad the troll was destroyed, and that Cherie is all right. I'm happy we were able to find the other horses and claim the troll's treasure, but what other good could come from that?
You forgot the 7 lost bags,
said Bregnest.
You've done a great thing recovering those bags. You have the chance to help many people when you return the bags to their heirs and families of the lost adventurers.
I don't know how I'll ever be able to do that, said Alex. I don't even know how I'll find out who owned the bags to start with.
The bag maker in Telos will be able to tell you who the bags belong to,
Bregnest replied, resting his hand on Alex's shoulder.
He should also be able to tell you who the heirs are and where they might be found.
Oh, I never thought of that.
You are learning quickly,
Bregnest said,
and I'm glad Thring and Archon asked you to join our adventure.
Thank you, said Alex, humbled and pleased at the same time.
Come now, let us join the others,
said Bregnest.
Though I don't think there will be much talk around the campfire tonight.
I am rather tired, said Alex as they walked back to the campfire. I don't remember ever feeling as tired as I do right now. It had been a long day, and Alex was happy with how things worked out. He smiled as he closed his eyes, hoping that Bregnest was right and that a great deal of good would come from returning the lost magic bags. That night they all slept soundly, with only the sound of the stream to break the silence. If any wild creature passed the camp, it went unnoticed. They slept late into the following morning, and then slowly ate the breakfast Thrang prepared. With a final cheer for their good fortunes and Alex's victory over the troll, they rode away from what the company had dubbed the Troll's Stream.